Hello, this is Todd Luck, and you ever wonder what happened to the son of Tarzan? Well, this is a review of a book that has an answer to that question. This is going to be a non-spoiler review of Korak at the Earth's Core. And before we get started, I did do another video on Korak and other media like comic books, so you can take a look at that if you're interested. But this is going to be focused on the brand new novel. And again, this is going to be a non-spoiler review. I'll probably do a separate video with my spoiler thoughts. And so here's the cover. And even though it doesn't say it, Korak is the son of Tarzan. And this is a Tarzan family novel. And no, Korak is not a Golden Age Rambo. He is a jungle hero. He has very similar abilities to his father. You just can't see the loincloth he's wearing in this particular painting. And down below, we have Korak's wife, Miriam, who also grew up in the jungle with him during his teenage years and has a lot of the same abilities. And this ape who looks like he's about to bite her face off is actually Korak's friend and mentor, Akut, who acted as his jungle daddy as he was growing up and kind of played the same role that Kala played for Tarzan when he was young. That jungle behind him is actually a prehistoric world called Pellucidar that's in the Earth's core. It's this jungle world that lines the hollow earth with a sun in the center to eternally light it. And it is prehistoric. You probably can't tell that just from a glance at the cover, but if you look really close, you can see some tiny pterodactyls. I don't actually have a physical copy of the book I can hold up and show you, but I can show you what previous books from Edgar Rice Burroughs Inc. look like, just to give you an idea of the format. And so this is what their soft covers look like. Here's an example of their hard covers. And here is a collector's edition. It's a hardcover that comes with a book plate. And you can also read it digitally on Kindle. That's the way I read it. And digital does have some advantages to it. You can read it anywhere you have a device. You can do word searches into text, things like that. Plus, digital is cheaper too. And so in Korak at the Earth's Core, Korak's daughter, Suzanne, who was introduced in a previous novel, Tarzan Battle for Pellucidar. This was a few years ago. And this is Suzanne. She's gone missing. And so Korak and Miriam both separately go to the Earth's core to look for their daughter. And so Suzanne has gone missing in this place called the Land of Awful Shadow, which is the only place on the surface of Pellucidar that has darkness, because Pellucidar has a noonday sun that always lights everything, except there is a moon that sits there in the sky, and it casts a shadow onto what is called the Land of Awful Shadow. Now, this is the first part in a trilogy called the Dead Moon Trilogy. That's what they call the moon, the Dead Moon. And so Korak at the Earth's Core is the first part of this trilogy. The second part will star Suzanne herself and will be called The Land of Awful Shadow. And then the third part will star, I don't know, a couple people you may have heard of named Tarzan and Jane. So the entire trilogy is written by Win Scott Eckert, and it is part of the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe, which is set in the same continuity as the original Edgar Rice Burroughs novels, and they technically count as canon. As far as the length of the book, it's similar, according to the page count on Amazon, to Win Scott Eckert's last Edgar Rice Burroughs universe novel, Tarzan Battle for Pellucidar, so that kind of gives you an idea. When you combine the main novel and the backup story, it's roughly a similar page length. However, there is a bonus in the back of this one that makes it just a little bit longer. So the book, of course, contains the main novel that I've been talking about, but it also contains a backup novelette by Christopher Paul Carey, who is the director of publishing at Edgar Rice Burroughs Inc., actually vice president of publishing, warlord of publishing at Edgar Rice Burroughs Inc. And so he wrote Victory Harbin and also Swords Against the Moon Men. And so this backup novelette is also set in Pellucidar and is called Dawn of the Death Slayer and introduces a new character named Darva the Shadow. And incidentally, if you order the book from Edgar Rice Burroughs Inc., you'll get a free trading card of that new character. The backup story I probably found a little bit more enjoyable than the main novel, simply because it does have a beginning, middle, and end. But then after that, there's a little surprise in there because there's a QR code to another story that you're going to read on edgarriceburroughs.com called The Fallen. So The Fallen is a short story that fills in some backstory for a new character that's introduced in the main novel. Right off the bat, it impressed me because it's written with a lot of quirkiness and humanity, and it's actually by an author named Mercedes Lackey. And couldn't find any information, about her with the story, so I looked her up. And she's published over 140 novels, and she's a fantasy writer, best known for the Voldemort series. And I think that experience really showed even in just a short story because it turns what could have been just some tedious throwaway backstory into something that was entertaining and is probably my favorite story in the book or related to the book, I guess. And so if you've read previous Edgar Rice Burroughs universe novels, you know that usually the novel and the backup story are set in like different worlds, right? You get a different sense of different properties just in one book. That's not what they're doing here. Obviously, all of it is set in Pellucidar. So what you're getting here is not a combo platter like you've been getting with previous novels. It's Pellucidar topped with some more Pellucidar with a little bit more Pellucidar sprinkled on top. So if you're not looking for Pellucidar, this may not be your novel. All right, let's set some realistic expectations for Korak at the Earth's core. First of all, the main novel is not a story. It is a part of a story. This is a serialized trilogy. There are things set up here that have no conclusion within this book. There are things that happen that do not have an explanation within this book. You will need to get the other two books in this trilogy. If you don't plan to get those, there's probably no point in picking this up. Also, when they were promoting this, they were saying certain things would happen in the story. They were not specifically talking about just this novel. They were talking about the entire trilogy. Keep that in mind. This is a story about Korak, Miriam, and Akut. If you're expecting other members of the Tarzan family to show up, you will be disappointed. They will be showing up in the future novels. You do not have to have read Tarzan Battle for Pellucidar in order to understand this novel. As far as I can tell, there's really not much connection. There's actually quite a few decades between this story and the one in Korak at the Earth's core. But this one does introduce Suzanne, and half of this novel is Suzanne's story, and it's quite good, so you might still want to pick it up. This is a book that new readers can pick up. There is effort to orient you to backstory. You may have to be patient in certain parts because, you may meet a creature or a character and they won't be described until later. Unless I missed something, I don't think a year was given that the story happens in. I think they were trying to avoid that for some reason, but it does give you some references that let the reader do some math to get to the approximate time period it happens in, which is supposed to be the 70s. Once again, this is not set in Africa. This is the third out of 3 Edgar Rice Burroughs universe novels involving Tarzan that have not been set in Africa. And considering the next 2 novels in this trilogy are also set at the Earth's core, then that could very well be 5 novels not set in Africa. Obviously, Burroughs set almost all of the Tarzan stories in Africa. He created hundreds of characters, dozens of civilizations, and I don't think there's an unwillingness to use all that. I think they just haven't found the right opportunities to tell those stories. However, this time there are 2 actual connections to Africa in the novel. One of them is the Waziri, which is Tarzan's adoptive tribe, and they do appear but very, very brief cameos. But this may improve in later novels. There is a new character who is a Waziri warrior princess, and it sounds like she may have a supporting role in the next novel. The other African connection is that there is a tribe of apes that does make a brief cameo in here, and Akut, of course, is also an ape. Akut is a supporting character here, and he's written in a very interesting way. He's written with a lot more human mannerisms and ability to do human things than we've ever seen in any of the Burroughs novels. This may be explained by the fact that he's been around humans for a while and he's kind of picked up some things. But, the way he's portrayed kind of reminds me of a trained ape in a movie or something like that. It's that kind of feeling, except he is not played up for humor. Unlike Cheetah in the Tarzan movies, this guy is no joke. This guy is like Cheetah if Cheetah could kick ass. He's like Cheetah the Barbarian. He just absolutely slays. And so the Mangani, or the apes, actually provide us with the most gruesome violence in this novel. They do indeed go ape on some bad guys. And it, again, reminds me of Mortal Kombat finishing moves, which we seem to be getting in these new Tarzan novels. Maybe we're trying them out for Mortal Kombat. I could definitely see summoning some apes as a good finisher, right? The Dum Dum would actually make a really epic finishing move. And the action in here is really over the top. It's like something you would see in a movie or something like that. There's a horrendous plane crash and somehow no one is injured. But some of that may be explained by the lesser gravity in the Earth's core. This is not a safe novel in the way it portrays the Tarzan family. It does make some very concrete decisions about what happens to them and who Korak and Miriam are as characters. Now, it justifies this by making references to the novels, and you may or may not buy their logic, but the work that the writer did is shown in the novel. However, the novel also smartly points out that this is not the final fate of the Tarzan family. It points out that they're not always going to be doing what we're seeing them do in this trilogy. They have been different in the past, and they will be different in the future. And this is a very smart thing to point out, because obviously there are going to be other writers, or heck, maybe the same writer, who is going to do other stories that will do other things with the Tarzan family. This is a group of characters who are together for over 100 years. And in that span, whatever you want to have happen to the Tarzan family probably does happen. The fate of the Tarzan family is not a single answer, right? It is a multiple choice question with as many answers as you want it to have. So this is a novel that spends a lot of time referring to other novels, particularly the works of Edgar Rice Burroughs. And being that kind of self-referential work does have a very different feel than those original Burroughs novels, which were just so easy to pick up. Sure, did Burroughs occasionally refer to other novels? Sure. Did Burroughs occasionally pick up on a few things here and there from previous novels? Sure. But nothing compared to what's done in the continuity-heavy Edgar Rice Burroughs universe novels. There's also quite a bit of sci-fi hoodoo mixed in here from the other novels. You're going to get more references to other dimensions and planets exploding than you've ever seen in a Tarzan novel. And while the sci-fi stuff is a little odd, what kind of bogs it down is just a sheer amount of exposition and explanations of things that happen in other novels. Just when you think the novel's finally going to get going, a character will come out of nowhere and start telling you their entire life story. And I just kept thinking to myself, man, I hope Suzanne is really on a beach somewhere sipping Mai Tais, because if she's in real danger, she's not going to make it, because her parents are never even going to get around to looking for her at this rate. But admittedly, that may run in the family. Of course, Tarzan was the master of distraction and could take his sweet, sweet time on a rescue mission himself. I didn't really start enjoying the novel until chapter 20, but it did click with me at that point, because suddenly there were human interactions that were resonating with me. There was world building, there were new places to explore. And after that, it did start working for the most part for me. And it wasn't anything particularly original, but it didn't have to be entertaining. Obviously, Edgar Rice Burroughs was the master at repurposing other people's ideas and recycling his own. To me, this novel took a long time to get going. The journey to get there isn't bad, it just didn't engage me. Once you get there, though, you're good. So to me, this is a novel that is decent overall, right? If I take all of it together, it's okay. But those last few chapters show a lot of great promise. And so I think what we have is a decent novel that's going to lead into a couple novels that are probably going to be really good. And I know I'm going to get comments that say, oh, well, I'm just going to wait until all three books come out and buy them then. And I don't really have a counter argument to that. I think that's a perfectly fine way to go about things in this case. But I will also say I do believe there will be a copious amount of backstory recapping in those next two novels. So they're not going to require you to remember something you read a year ago. And so that is all of my non-spoiler thoughts on Korak at the Earth's Core. Tell me what you guys think. Did you pick it up? Are you planning to pick it up? If you've read it, what do you think about it? And I will probably be doing a spoiler video on it at some point. So like and subscribe for more videos. And as Korak's dad would say, see ya.